Everything's always posted to the Google Classroom. All right, so if you look at problems like 28, 29, and 30, so if we look at 28, 29, 30, I want you to write a quadratic function whose graph has the given characteristics. So for 28, it gives you x-intercepts, and those x-intercepts, it says, are negative 7 and negative 3. And then it says it passes through the point negative 1 and 12. Your goal is to come up with the equation that corresponds with this information. So first off, what form is the equation going to be in, based off the information that's given? Gunnar?
X-intercept.
And x-intercept form looks like what, Gunnar?
Oh, y equals a x plus p.
Minus b.
Minus p. X. Minus 8. 2.
So because you're given intercepts, you want to write it in intercept form. And that's based off of the information you're given. If you're given the vertex, then you want to write it in vertex form. But in this case, we're going to write this problem in intercept form because we have the intercepts to work with. So what numbers get plugged in, Gunnar?
Negative 7 goes for p.
Yep. So if you plug it in for p, it actually becomes a plus 7 because there's a minus in the problem. There's a minus as the intercept. They change signs. And then the negative 3 goes in for q. And again, there's a minus in the problem. There's a minus in the intercept, so it turns into a plus. All right, so that's plugging the intercepts in. What else do you do, Gunnar?
And then after this, you plug in negative 1 and 12. So you plug in 12 for y. And then set it equal to a equals negative 1 plus 7 times negative 1 plus 3.
Good. So you take then the point, which is your x and your y. So you're plugging in the value for x and y into the problem, and then you have a to solve for. So gray, negative 1 plus 7 is?
A 6, I'm sorry.
And negative 1 plus 3 is?
2.
2. So this gives us 12 equals?
12a.
12a. When you multiply 6 times 2 with a, you get 12a. So that means a is just what? Kind of boring. A is just 1. So that means the number in front of my parentheses for the intercept form should just be the value of 1. So it's a standard parabola. It doesn't get wider. It doesn't get narrower because of the a value being 1. So my final equation, after you calculate a, you would have a 1, but we don't really put a 1 there. And then x plus 7 and x plus 3. So for 29, very similar, but you're using vertex form instead of intercept form because you're given the vertex. So based off the information you're given, you need to choose that equation that you would use, and then you're plugging on the information. Another question from the review for chapter 4. Gunnar.
24.
So 24 tells you to use the quadratic formula to solve the equation. And the equation says 5x squared, 2x plus 5, already equal to 0. Remember, if it isn't equal to 0, you need to make it be equal to 0. So if it had something else on the other side, make sure you move everything to the same side so that it's equal to 0. John, what's the quadratic formula?
X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
And he said it really quick. All right, so plugging this stuff in, John, what does it look like when we plug in those numbers?
The x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 5 times 5.
Good. And 2 times
5.
5. Does anybody remember what the underneath part is called? Just the numbers underneath the square root? Tyler? Who? Who said it? Ethan? Is that you?
The discriminant.
Oh, discriminant. Yeah. So that's the discriminant. So the numbers underneath are the discriminant. that tells you if there's going to be a real solution, if it's bigger than 0, an imaginary solution if it's less than 0, if it equals 0, 1 solution. But that tells you information about the problem. So we've got a -2 plus or minus. Nate, what number is underneath? Not Nate. Why am I calling you your brother's name? Holy cow, Emerson. Sorry.
Oh, that's like a
That's like,
old brother.
I mean, I had him when he was in 9th grade.
Okay.
And that was, oh, I don't know, that is a long time ago.
I got -96.
-96. Alright, so, I'm sorry, Emerson. We have -2 plus or minus the square root of -96 divided by 10. This number underneath is negative, so it tells us we should have 2 imaginary numbers. When we try and simplify that, really, we have the I and then the square root of 96. So the imaginary number is the I part, the negative part, and we've got the square root of 96. Emerson, how does the square root of 96 break down?
The 4I times the square root of 6.
So 16 times 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 16 times 6.
Alright, so 96 can break down as to 16 and 6. And he said it would be a 4. The I then goes next, so the square root of 16 is 4. We have the imaginary number because there was a negative underneath, and then the square root of 6. And all of that's divided by 10. So Ray was asking this question at the beginning of class. He asked, do you need to simplify this further? Yes, if it can be simplified further, we need to make sure we do that. Jesse, how does this simplify further?
You can divide everything by 2.
We can divide all of it by 2 because 2, 4, 10, they're all divisible by 2. And if we divide all of that by 2, Jesse, it would become
X equals -1 plus or minus 2I times the square root of 6 over 5.
Nice job. So after you break down 96, you have it in that equation over there. We still need to break it down further if it can be divided out. And they're all divisible by 2. So you want to make sure you do break it down as far as it can go. Simplify it. Questions? Oh, one more.
30.
30? 30, the word problem? You didn't have to do 30. You had to do 28, 29, 31.
Then 31.
What?
We do 31.
Yeah. So number 31, just to remind you, it was talking about aspect ratio. The aspect ratio of a widescreen TV is the ratio of the screen's width to its height. That ratio is always a 16:9 ratio. So for a widescreen TV, which is I think every TV that is made now, so your LCDs, your LEDs, your smart, whatever they make now, I don't know. But the width to height ratio is 16:9. They give you a little diagram of a TV, and they say that the TV size is a 32-inch TV, which Mr. Kane would complain that that's way too small. Apparently we need a 60-inch TV, but I feel like 50 is enough, but whatever. So they measure the TV by the diagonal. So the length of the diagonal is the size of your TV. So if it's a 32-inch TV, it's not that the length or the width is 32 inches, it's that the diagonal is 32 inches. So the size of the TV is based off of the diagonal from one quarter to the other. And then it does tell you that the width to height is 16 by 9. The x is there because that value for x can change based off of the diameter, or the diagonal of the TV. It also says that you can use Pythagorean theorem to help you solve this because you've got a nice right triangle. So what is the Pythagorean theorem? Right?
A squared plus b squared equals c squared.
So Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And what numbers would you plug in?
So it'd be 16x squared plus 9x squared plus equals the 32
32
squared.
squared. What's squared with 16x and 9x?
Isn't it both? Like
Both of
parts?
them, yeah. So 16x squared, both pieces are squared. All of that's squared, not just the x. 9x, again, all of that is squared. So 16 squared is
256.
256, and then your x is squared. So if you only have 16x squared, then you're going to get a wrong answer because you're not squaring all of it. That whole side needs to be squared, that whole quantity. 9 squared is
81.
81, and 32 squared is
1024.
1024. So 256 and 81 is
337.
You said 24, right?
Yeah.
So we have 337 x squared is equal to 1024. When you're solving for x, you want to get it by itself so we can continue to divide. And I know it gives you some kind of random
It's like
decimal.
3.039.
I'll just keep it like this for now. And then to get x by itself, we're taking the
Square root.
square root. So take the square root of both sides. And whatever number it gives you, you're taking the square root of 1024 divided by 337. Anybody have that number for x? You didn't think your number was right?
Oh yeah, I got 1.74.
1.74. Angelina, you got 1.74? So x is about 1.74. So the question said, what would the width and the height be? So x is 1.74. That means my width is 16 times 1.74. The height is 9 times 1.74. So whatever those two values would be, which is about 27.9 inches and 15.7 inches.
I
if you
rounded
have
up.
1 decimal place. Yeah. Questions on that? So tomorrow is your test. You'll be given the test as you walk in the door. You will just have the period to take it. You can come back and finish it, so make sure you're pacing yourself, keeping track. Try and remind you what time it is, how much time you have left. It should be pretty similar to this. So tonight, if you're studying, maybe pick 15 questions to do. See how long it takes you to do those 15 questions. If it takes you more than 40 minutes, then kind of go over those parts that you really got stuck on. But tomorrow, like, don't get stuck on a problem. Skip it, move on, come back to it. The other thing, I will not be here tomorrow. So there will be a sub in for me. He knows to stand at the door. But if you do have questions, come after school today because I won't be able to be here in the morning to answer any questions that you have before the test. All right, so then you need your chapters 3 and 4 notebook, packet, homework questions. You have exactly 25 minutes and there are 15 questions on here. Your chapter review I will look at on Thursday. So if you didn't finish it, make sure you finish it by Thursday. So the review, the book homework I will be looking at on Thursday. I don't want to collect it from you right now. I want you to have that to study from. Today's the 28th. And Megan, there was an extra. No, that's not. Excuse me, one from you. Alright, so it starts with chapter 3 and it does go in order. I did not skip around. So the first couple of questions are chapter 3, and then once you get to chapter number 6, it starts with chapter 4. So it does not skip around. I try to keep it pretty organized so that you could go through, not going back and forth with material.